All right, we are back.
Cheers.
Maybe a strange place to start, but the old liquid death dead billionaire is probably a good place. We have got a lot of crazy news to get to in the headlines. Honestly, it's Monday. We're December 9th, so flying into the December holiday, coming out of post-Turkey Day, we've got new SEC announcements. We've got some acquisition news, giant acquisition news. Omnicom. Did you hear about Omnicom acquiring Interpublic Group? Like $25 billion in combined market cap acquisitions. Big money moves. We're talking Bitcoin at all-time highs, and the one that everybody's talking about, dead CEO, murdered in cold blood in the streets. And I mean, what a crazy narrative here. And in none of that did I use the word Trump or Elon. So where do you want to pick up? I mean, all-time highs and dead billionaires.
Grab a drink. It's time for another episode of Off the Record, on the Rocks. Join Michael Toner and Ankarina Lara as we discuss the latest in all things Web3, AI, metaverse, and crypto. Tune out the noise and turn up the signal as we pour ourselves into the future. Better make mine a double.
It's crazy right now.
It's crazy right now. And, look, we talk on this show a lot about the different news stories that come out in the global space, in the domestic space, in the tech space, political realms, other markets. Nothing in this world happened in isolation. Everything has ties together. There's reasons for things that we don't necessarily see as black and white, perhaps until more clues are revealed. We call it reading the tea leaves, right? We do this a lot. But isn't it a little interesting, Michael, that, rest in peace, the dead billionaire. I know there's people on all sides of it who have different feelings about how that went down. But what did go down was an assassination. And assassination attempts is something that this is now just parlance for the year, because it seems like it's happening a lot more, right? Army generals talking about how this is definitely not a professional hit because we're a bunch of 50 and 60 and 70-year-old guys who do war the old way. It's like, look, man, hitmen have to have a first job, right? Didn't James Bond get told that it gets easier after your first kill? I mean, even his first kill was messy. We all see Casino Royale. So yeah, maybe some 22-year-old kid at a hostel got 50 grand in a duffel bag with a gun with a silencer with words like deny written on the bullets. And maybe somebody thought, well, he probably won't get the job done, right? He's just a new kid on the block. But then guess what? He did. And guess what else happens like during these weird times, like these Thanksgiving holiday weeks? Weird stuff happens that they're trying to not make the news. They want you to not see it for what it is. So yeah, billionaire dead, and then straight up Assad deposed, kind of all within a 7-day swing around when America is still trying to clean up the turkey grease off the oven.
Let's people go one at a time.
One at a time. So that dead billion, I went too crazy.
No, it's hard not to, but I just think for the listeners, it is important to go one at a time. We're starting here. We're talking about Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, one of the biggest insurance companies in the world, and the CEO attending what was supposed to be an investor conference in Manhattan. Who would have known he was there? I'm looking at this now. We could not have planned this, but live suspect in custody for United Healthcare CEO's killing. So this is coming. Reporting from CNN, breaking news. They're giving the name Luigi Mangione, a 26-year-old man arrested in Pennsylvania in connection with the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. And there looks like the news, these guys are already chasing down, college classmates to get interviews. But and the guy's just getting put in the ground today. The funeral services being held today. I'll just say for a moment, that does not happen. Yes, it does not happen accidentally. He was worth more dead than alive, unfortunately, for whatever that means, that the value, whatever he was blocking, whatever he was holding back, whether it was at a massive scale, maybe it's the approval of the Ozempic drug. I'm not sure what it is, and we may never know, but it's pretty clear to me that big money talks. And if there's one person standing in your way, or you want to make a big impact you know, going after these CEOs. We've talked about oligarchs on the show here, and we think it's crazy when somebody falls out of a 9th-story window in Russia, and we laugh it off. But isn't this what we have just seen here in New York City?
Yeah, and we're talking about Manhattan, downtown. This is the unthinkable, right? This is what we've talked about before, where is the United States a country that is solving its problems by murdering its leaders? We've already had two attempts on a president-elect, and now a straight-up successful hit on one of the most powerful people in healthcare. And it creates, it creates a huge question mark shaped cloud that hovers over the city, because of course the mainstream media will going to trot out all their experts. And what I was kind of ranting about before is there are these guys, these old guys. I mean, the guy is an old Army Ranger,
Yeah.
drill sergeant or whatever they are, and they keep going on and on and on and on about how this is not in any way a professional hit. This was just a mentally unstable person acting alone. Well, why would you continually say that? Why is that narrative so important? Well, because if you start telling people that there are professional, as in paid assassins who maybe aren't very good at what they're doing because they're just starting out, riding around on e-bikes in Manhattan, well, God, it's going to be a really crappy holiday season with people not wanting to go shopping, on Fifth Avenue. You can't tell that story. So to me, when they had all these guys instantly coming who had zero information that was extra than what we had, we're just like, oh, of course, blah, 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 his gun jammed for a second, so obviously he's in. Blah, blah. It's like, wait, hey guys, when was the last time you went and tried to assassinate somebody? You know what I mean? I mean, I hate to make light of it, but I feel like there's a big cover up on exactly who and how is motivated. And maybe if it's the real guy who matches the smiling picture, then maybe we will find, like, where did the breadcrumbs drop? Where does the money come from? Where does the angle, the action, silencers, e-bikes, hoodie, just the whole thing felt a little Hollywoody, to be honest.
It does. And you take that Hollywood thread. I think you mentioned assassins. I mentioned Russia, and we see this kind of murder take place in cold blood, what feels like Gotham City. And yet when especially Americans think about it happening in Putin pushing somebody out of a window or killing a ballerina, as we've covered here, then that global cinematic stage that you just described to me takes the second act here with the fall of Assad and the Syrian government and him having to come over and take refuge with Putin. Like, help me unpack this a little bit. But this is Russia losing Syria. This is who's winning in Syria is maybe the question.
Yeah, or who? I mean, at a certain point, too, just for everyone, since this is a backdrop conversation about what's really going on as we bring it right back around to technology and Web3 and AI. But it's important to understand the backdrop. This is not a political podcast by any means, but it's important to understand these details, which is, for me, one of the number one things. You said Batman and Gotham, which I think is a really interesting one, because the Batman Gotham story is, well, do we need a vigilante? And is that what we need to sort of solve crime in big Gotham? Probably not. But then it begs the question, because in all the lore, it's like, well, is the vigilante actually a good guy? And when I think about Syria and I think about people coming in, people going out, and different refuge and locations and whatever, the question for me that's so complicated is who are the good guys currently in Syria holding Aleppo? And are these guys that we, the United States government, at some point in time have funded with weapons and money? Are because there's that global swirl where, why are there so many American-made weapons in Iran? Oh, I don't know. Why are there so many American-made weapons in the hands of, dictators in, the Middle East? And there are all these times where someone was our best pal and they became our enemy. And I feel like we're in one of these moments where, again, right around Thanksgiving, when no one's paying attention, but you could probably pull 10 people and ask them about what happened in Syria. They wouldn't know on the street. But to me, it feels like, okay, a lot of changing of people and positions, but what does it actually do for the kind of that part of the world? And what we do know is that, well, clearly when things like this happen, the surge in the interest in cryptocurrencies starts to go through the ceiling because all these countries we've just rattled off are all countries under sanctions by the United States government, which means they cannot use dollars to continue their war machines and their initiatives. It creates a global market surge in crypto interest, and that's something that's very bizarre as a side effect.
This is, and I have not listened to it. We don't talk a lot about Joe Rogan, but I want to go listen to this episode that he, I guess, did a conversation with Mark Andreessen, so A16, who we have been talking about a lot here in the past couple of weeks. I'm going to connect some dots here, but one of the things I guess that came out of that conversation was about this shift in the timeline, this shift in the narrative, this giant fork in the road. You may have seen Elon tweeted this big giant art sculpture of a fork in the road. And it does feel like what you're describing, this global cinematic experience from CEOs to falls of the Syrian government to, the rise of Trump, the assassination attempt on his life, and you just take all of this back, and it feels like we've now got this alternate timeline. Something has shifted. It's big. It is a big change, and I'm not talking about AI, but we are all at the same time. It's all happening. The global stage is changing. Who the good guys are, then who the bad guys are, may be shifting, changing, evolving. It literally moving on from World War I and World War II era military officials talking about jammed guns to, the use of artificial intelligence controlling the nuclear weapons. And all of that, in my mention of AI, Sora, the long-awaited program from Sam Altman, the thing that's going to alter our reality perhaps the most, this deep fake video, the ability to create that cinematic experience, that movie, that picture that I just painted for you. I'm going to go to Sora right after this show, and I'm going to type in a bunch of prompts, and I'm going to create the movie exactly how I just described it to you, and I'm going to publish it as a 30-second video, and it becomes reality. Holy shit. Are we entering the Black Mirror phase? You tell me.
Well, I tried to get a login. They said it was temporarily closed. Did you actually get in to register on Sora?
No, but it's literally like next thing I'm doing on my day.
Yeah, so I tried, but yeah, what you're saying now, I mean, again, let's take these parallels, right? We at one point in time were told by a number of people, no relationship, but Helen Toner, who left OpenAI because of her effective altruistic beliefs, who said Sam Altman is a bad actor. To her and to many other people, Sam Altman is not the good guy. But to people in the tech world and to people who are investors and et cetera, well, Sam Altman's the future. He's going to be maligned because he's pushing these envelopes and these boundaries. But is that so dissimilar to what's happening across geopolitical borders? Not really. There's just new people and new roles, right? We used to be able to count on 5 fingers who were the people that mattered in Silicon Valley, especially when I was working there and living there, right? You knew exactly what was going on. That was at a time, too, where guys who were making microchips were still important, before they bought super yachts and decided to, build museums and do their own altruistic whatevers. But now it's like, oh, no, there's a new guy who just slid into the side door. His name is Sammy Altman. Excuse me, Elon. Excuse me, Mr. Zuckerberg. Excuse me, Sundar. Excuse me, head of whoever is the current head of YouTube, or etc. All the people who used to be so important, you guys coming in, and everyone's talking bad about him. Sundar Pichai just this morning came out on this big conference and said, oh, AI is just slowing down. It's slowing down. Like we had this really nice exponential rapid rise, but now we're kind of hitting an asymptotic leveling off to a more logarithmic profile. I'm like, well, that's a whole lot of big words.
Well said.
But so what are you saying? Actually, those are my words. Those even were his. So score 1 for me. Took stats. But anyway, it's like really the head of Google is saying that AI is slowing down. Why in the world would someone at his level have an interest in even suggesting that? Because as long as the world believes that Sam Altman is flying forward and barreling forward and pushing the envelope, then he is. But if Google comes and says, well, actually, no, it's slowing down, and like, we'll see what Sora is and blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a couple of moments here where they're going to need to make the big, impressive releases that are going to convince the world that we and the love of AI is something bigger than just summarizing my damn emails and text threads and being able to talk to Siri to change the radio station without my hands leaving the wheel. And or people cheating on papers. Like, if that's AI is sort of only that little tiny little cog, but there's this gigantic machine that AI is supposed to be, and we don't know what it is. But apparently, Sundar thinks, well, that's just way down the road. Down the road. And that's like, just to me, that rang of it seems scared, and it seems like trying to control a narrative, trying to wrestle the narrative away from Sam Altman and bring people, quote, back down to earth, which is actually one of his quotes.
I would say
phenomenal and weird, bizarre.
Sundar knows that people are already going to ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity to do things that they used to do on Google. There is work that people would used to go to search to do that AI is replacing. And guess what? It's better.
No.
It's better experience. And so they're losing ground. They're being chopped up. We haven't covered, at least in a couple of episodes, but the forced divestiture of Chrome, the search monopoly that Google has held here's what's crazy. Like, I'm like at the behest of the American government, right? Like the monopoly that was formed and created is now being broken up. Full stop. And new characters come in. New game.
Do you Google things anymore?
No,
because I don't.
I've been ChatGPTing or AIing everything. Yes.
I just chat on chat.com.
That's digital.chat if we're starting to promote the latest and greatest in technology. The browser is dead. I think that's a huge thesis. We'll come back to that. But yeah, Google, Sundar is
you just said it. Like, why would the head of Google come out and say that AI is slowing down? Well, maybe because he's being forced to sell Chrome to Sam Altman. Maybe it's because there's this fait accompli that's already in the works. Because when Google tied itself to the United States government and became a pal of the DOJ, when Facebook tied itself to the government and became a pal of the DOJ, they did for one reason. That was to provide data so that the American government could better protect our national security. Remember those favorite words, matter of national security. You say those words anywhere in any part of the world where you live, and you just get shit done, right? That's all you have to say. So that's sort of their relationship with the government. But Sam Altman's relationship with the government is actually a little different. You might say they're not really interested in the data that he's collecting from end users. I'm sure that's a nice benefit to see what people are chatting or whatever. But what do they really want? They want the new technology. They want to own a piece of the roadmap. They want to influence what AI becomes. They want the A in AI to stand for American intelligence.
Yes.
Dead full stop to say that another full stop, because then that's how you see, oh, well, why would Apple want to run really far away from that project? And hey, we'll integrate something later, but like, we're not going to be tied to this thing, because Apple knows as soon as they tie that little, rope around the cleat of the good ship SS Sammy Altman, then next thing you know, they're going to get scrutinized and start being brought in that same kind of government DOJ fold. And Apple does not want to be associated with the military, and certainly not associated with military intelligence, now called American intelligence, which is AI, helping to target bombs on people in foreign countries.
Yeah.
Because that's where this is headed. It may not be nukes, but it's surely going to be drones with machine guns on them.
Right.
At a bare minimum.
And if we already know that the players are at least having discussions about whether or not your AI or my AI or our AIs are going to control the nukes, well, guess which AI I want? Guess which one I want?
You want the Iranian one?
No.
The Pakistani one? The French one? Because the French, we haven't talked about France, but they had some problems too in their government. They're like governments around the world are starting to have problems running
Well,
themselves.
and then how can we pull this thread back while Bitcoin hits an all-time high? Governments are having problems running themselves. What do governments exist for but to control currency? I mean, that's a bold statement. I'm not saying it's the only thing they're good at, and they haven't been that good at it going back millennia. But every, you know, I've been listening to a lot of Michael Saylor, and I'll admit it, but it's this concept of perfect money, this concept of a global currency. You're not thinking big enough. You know, I keep saying it every time, but when we're talking about individual countries and comparing the market cap and the size and the inflows into Bitcoin, you're not thinking big enough. The number can go up. You know, the number can be bigger than you can ever imagine, in that, you know, the number of people in this world is bigger than most of us can imagine or fathom or understand. I guess what I'm getting at is, I think that maybe that's the new narrative. You know, that's the big shift. We're talking about this convergence of these technologies, everything that this podcast has been doing now for 94 episodes. The thesis of what you and I started this thing on was the convergence of these technologies. We were calling it metaverse. We were talking crypto, talking NFTs. But at the end of the day, these AI, blockchain, and a regulatory certainty around it, this upgrading of Web 2, this changing definition of ownership. I know I'm ranting here, but it is the shift.
It's what you're saying. It is the shift, and it's what we've been tracking. And AI, and whatever the form of that is, because just like when people used to talk about crypto and not actually understand that it was an umbrella over so many things, AI isn't just ChatGPT helping you write stuff. It's this umbrella of really important optimizations that are going to happen. I mean, let's not forget, we should, bring this around too, to how many of these major technology players will start to take official roles in government, right? We're seeing there's obviously been a bunch of pro crypto, appointments. Pro crypto, really, let's just call it like people who are Bitcoin maxis, who are interested in furthering the US economy, who want to build a strategic Bitcoin reserve alongside the Federal Reserve. Like, this is all very simple, very easy to understand, right? I'm appointing this person because we're going to move forward in this new creation of value, and America wants to control all of it if we can, but most of it if we can't. Okay, that's fine. But now there's these other appointments coming, like you have Elon Musk. Well, Elon Musk isn't just like a crypto enthusiast. He's sort of a bunch of other things. He might as well be running NASA, or at least helping every, official, formalizing his role of sending up satellites. I mean, honestly, you can't have a private contractor doing that all day long. So that's not sort of a role there. But God, wouldn't it be strange if there are people who used to work with Sam Altman at OpenAI, or have left Anthropic to go to, or are leaving Google Gemini, and suddenly will have positions maybe in like proper technology roles in the government. And those are going to be appointments that are going to be furthering that initial launch. What was it, a year ago now, when we had the Bring Your AI to us, that
Yes.
giant website that the Biden administration put up about a year ago. And we counted like no less than 600 open job recs across every division of government, with every rec named and itemized with email contact information and everything to apply for these jobs. And I mean, you and I both know you can't fill those jobs fast enough because, well, A, it's hard to hire people into AI, but B, there's just not that many people who actually know what they're talking about, who are really moving things forward. They're probably already hired by a lot of these companies. So is the American government now, I mean, I say this out of one side of my mouth, sort of in a sarcastic way, but is the American government now in the business of poaching some of the best employees of these tech companies and bringing them onto the side of the feds? Because we've seen this happen before with traditional Web 2. right? Who becomes the new SEC blank? Oh, some guy from Facebook's marketing team. Who becomes the new blah blah blah? Oh, the person from over here. So I'm as much as we're seeing these top guys change, like if we're looking at the pyramid of the peak and most influential tech people, they're starting to get allocated into some appointments, high profile jobs, CEOs, new tech companies, et cetera, et cetera. But then there's just this litany of people below them who are not your CEOs and not your founders and not your C-suite guys, but they're just like they're the lieutenants down in the trenches, like moving this stuff forward, project managing and program managing, and probably know the code better than any of the guys who are talking heads. So I think we're going to see a really interesting like smearing around of people jumping in and out of these private companies into the public sector because the United States government's going to make it really worthwhile for them.
Can I tell you? I just while you were going on this rant, I was like, I
Yeah.
wonder where Ellen Toner went to, and guess where she's at? It's the Center for Security and Emerging Technology, CSET. That's CSET, the Center for Security and Emerging Technology. I have never heard of that government agency. Um, really fascinating. It's a
I
think
know,
tank
right?
here in Washington, D.C., literally a think tank as they go by the name, providing decision makers with data driven analysis on the security implications of emerging technologies. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I think that's the shuffle that we just kind of went through the last 18 months, probably around the time that Biden executive order was coming out. We saw
Mm-hmm.
that flurry of activity. That deck of cards was getting stacked and shuffled. The companies that we know we have to have control over, Chrome, search dominance, who are the players in AI, Sam Altman, what's Apple doing with AI? It's all now, as you say, sort of this uh, coming to fruition. Like the plan was the plan, the fix was in, as we talk about, and now let's get to 2025. Right, we're piecing together this first week of December. 1 week of news we just uncovered: giant acquisitions, murders in the streets, crazy tech releases from OpenAI, new SEC chairman. The acquisition to me is another like giant signal within that ad agency market of guess who stands to benefit the most from these AI tools. Those ad agencies who do have a bunch of humans there who can now deploy this technology. They're the new army of truth and reality and the messaging and the narrative controlling and the storytelling that these companies, when Unilever comes in and OpenAI has to now hire some agency, they hire a new agency of record. Well, guess what? It's no longer Omnicom or Interpublic Group. It's all the same. It's all one big owned company.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the couple of points you made there, which are really interesting, is that the agency model, the agency of record model, is another area which I don't think we even begin to talk about because in previous lives I've interacted with tons of people, tons of the holding companies, right? The WPP, Omnicom, Publicis Group, et cetera. And then underneath that, you have all these boutique. People don't really realize every year in the Ad Age magazine, at the end of the year, I think it either comes this issue or the January issue, but it does what's called the agency family tree, and they just do like it's almost like a laser plotter, big unfolded trifold, where it shows the hierarchy, and you'll like look and say, "Oh, wait a second, who was that old Nike agency, Wyden Kennedy? Oh, there they are. Who owns them now?" And there's like weird little paths you have to follow, and you see suddenly that, like you said, the truth is being created by one, two, or three organizations, and as they consolidate down, less and less, right? There's very few, and then you have to ask the question, but the model is always, we have 16 resources on your account, Reebok. So feel really good about that. We have our creative director, we have our program manager, and then we have like 14 other people who are between the ages of 22 and 25, whose names are like Allison with a Y and Colby and they are going to work on your account. And what do? Well, they sit in meetings, 10 of them at a time, all with laptops, taking notes and running around doing whatever they're doing. The amount of waste is unbelievable. And no one actually knows this unless you get inside and see it.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of experience with this. Agencies are bloated with people. So now the question is,
By design.
if AI coming in,
By design.
does that mean that they now can make 5 times as much money off of Allison with the Y because she, with her digital twin agent, can actually be in 5 meetings at once?
Yeah.
Or do they say, we need to cut half the staff because the entire floor 6, at the headquarters, well, there's not even any humans there anymore. It's just servers running agents for half the people we laid off. Like, which way is it going to go? Because the agency model right now is people looking at people, shaking hands, big steak dinner, lots of high-fiving, as the clock strikes 11 and get out of the restaurant. Like, that's scotch and soda agency life up until today.
I
So
want
which
to
way is it going to go?
I want to get to AI agency agents. And I want to make one quick point before I get there, which is when you just described that ad age family tree, I pictured the kind of the bubbles of like the size. It starts with like the real big guys, and then there's like all these niche companies. And I don't know if you've ever seen any of the blockchain analysis, wallet analysis, when you watch a wallet kind of create net new wallets on the blockchain and disperse funds to create holding vehicles of that fund, what we talked about, tornado cash, and like to kind of hide money inside of crypto wallets, right? One wallet can have control over lots of parent and child wallets. Literally, the description of those agencies, I'm picturing, oh my gosh, by design, that is how those agencies are structured. The money goes from the top. And that is why I had such a focus on this morning. You're talking about, a $25 billion merger, 25 Bs. We talk about 3, you and I get excited. We're keeping tracks of the 3s, the 5s, and the 7s. This is $25 billion that now is going to have the power of AI agency agents. And AI agency agents, I mean, I'm making this up as I go here with agency, but all of these guys working at these agencies are now going to be able to create and train their digital twins. What they do every day, what they click on their computer, where they go, how they download a file, those notes that they take, it's now going to have exponential ability to create value. Will these agencies go on chain? Let's get there.
Well, and here's something else you got to consider. So, IPG, which is the company that was just acquired, which is one of the big holding companies, acquired by Omnicom, which I believe Omnicom is the largest currently in terms of just money under management of all the big ones. I think WPP might be second and Publicis is third. It's also important to note, where these companies are based, because Omnicom, I believe, is based out of New York City. I believe. I could be wrong on this one. Don't hold me to it. I know Publicis is French. There's basically a large European holding company, an American holding company, and a French holding company. And I don't know which one is the one who just did the acquisition. We'll have to look that up. But anyway, the point there is that there are there are a plurality of AIs. Well, of course there are. There's a plurality of advertising agencies that are starting to consolidate. But one of my points about just the raw number of people that are thrown at this is that when you have lots of interdependencies of humans across business units at these agencies, you create a redundancy that allows these companies to move forward, even if pieces change in and out. So that's to say that you have, a team of 100 people who are working on a brand at an agency, and there's not any one individual in that team who actually really knows everything. Like, everyone touches parts of it. It's designed specifically to be set up so that a rogue agent, I keep using these words, it's so great, very Hollywood, but a rogue agent can't just sort of go across the street and take the business with them. Like, Now you have creative directors and you have, your Pharrell Williamses, and you have these guys who are at the very top of their houses and brands. And yeah, when they go, they have a Rolodex and they have a name and the thing and the thing. But I can guarantee you, when Allison with the Y goes across the street to the rival agency, literally knows and can take nothing. It's like almost, again, by design to be this impenetrable fortress. And it's an impenetrable fortress because there's just so many humans. And I can't tell you how frustrating that is as someone who is a small business owner who likes to work with agencies when you go and you literally can't find anyone to answer your question.
Is there anybody in charge here? Is there
Who's in
anybody
charge
running
here?
this place?
And then she turns to me, she says, "Aren't you?" And then turns back and keeps fighting. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to get you guys to answer a question. So something I also think very interesting about this is that as these agencies come together, I mean, they're not merging staff. Like a lot of times people have this idea that when these companies acquire another company, that they're like, okay, well, now let's merge these companies and then we'll like lay some people off as we merge. But every one of these, all the IPG brands, generally speaking, are completely different from the brands that are owned by Omnicom. So they're just doubling their portfolio. It's not really an optimization move at all. It's an expand and take over the world move. It's that moment when Google started the search monopoly in tech. This is starting an advertising monopoly. And as soon as that, again, what's one of the most powerful ways to tell stories, to bring it back around? It's video, right? It's audio. Show it to me. Prompt it and show it to me. So one of my best friends works and has won Emmys doing Top Chef and other kinds of cooking shows. They work with advertising agencies and they have those footage they cut and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. To this day, there are still a bunch of computer systems, whether they're RAID arrays and they're set up around Avid machines or they're looking at, Final Cut Pro, but they're sitting in a building, in a physical building that has lights, has people shampooing carpets, it has security at the door, and they're processing the video to publish the episodes that will then get sent to broadcast. Those humans, though, most often are not even in the building. They're at their houses because you can thank pandemic from remote working. And they have remote desktop software that is mirrored over there. So when you see these little mouse and cursors, so like sometimes the boss, my best friend, goes in just to see to the headquarters because all she has to do is walk around and look at the terminals. Look at the terminals that her agents are working on from far away. And she sees the little mouses moving, clicking, and doing stuff and processing stuff. But sometimes you walk by the terminals and the little cursor is not moving. Because you know what? That person at home is just not working. The human is the mirrored agent. So as soon as you introduce a real digital twin agent who can, because you watch that mouse move around, it's the same pattern every time. It's processing video. As soon as you can make an agent for that, then suddenly the question becomes, well, then do you need the people?
I think this is where this ownership and IP piece becomes interesting to me. This is where like me owning my own agency, meaning what I can do as a human. What do I as a human do when I'm on the computer? And I've talked about this last time. I use the podcast here as the example, but I click download the track, right? I click search file. I go into my Finder. I click open. There's little micro activities, but along that path, in what maybe takes me 30 minutes, I can go from a full downloaded file to a transcript to a social media post to an automated distribution through a tool that schedules social media posts, right? Using these workflows that I've created. And every human with their own agency who works and produces value, maybe they were trained to do it. Maybe their employer literally said, here's your job, sir. Here's what we need you to do. You're going to process these things. You're going to move them over here. Well, now every person should be thinking about their own agency. How can I replicate and automate me, the things I do for my own efficiency, to buy back my own time? Now it starts to sound like, oh, isn't that what AI is supposed to do? Better, faster, cheaper, buy back my time. I can just sit back and not work. Well, no, you need to go train it. You need to watch it, observe it, monitor it, maybe even grade it, especially if you have 10 of them. You got to know which of your agents is doing a good job. One of them is going to mess up. They're going to click the wrong button. They're not going to upload it. They're going to have a typo in their post. The graphic's going to look awful. It's not what I want. Well, you have to be able to give feedback. Now all these things start to sound like managerial traits.
Sounds like you need an agent manager.
I think that this is where, things are going to get weird. Things are going to get fast. The ability to build, to go from ideas to execution. We've talked about that. I think all of that now put in the hands of the thousands, hundreds of thousands of employees that are now under the Omnicom umbrella, who are going to get training and education around the use of these tools to build cool shit. We already seen Coca-Cola put out the AI ad, kind of got run through the ringer. You're going to see a whole new slew of ads here around AI generated, just using AI generated content.
Well, and so just to piggyback on that for a second, what this all is, it makes me excited to hear, and hopefully listeners out there who are small business owners and entrepreneurs, is that when you are able to instantiate an agent and then a second and third agent, yes, it's a reflection of you, a digital twin of you that does a specific task like you on your behalf. Well, you are kind of sort of running a small business. Like, can I apply for a small business loan? And when they ask, well, how many employees do you have? And I say, well, I have one founder and managing employee, and I have 6 agents. Does that count as, maybe it's 2 agents to every 1 human? Like, does that count as a 3-person team?
Well, then
I get a loan? Because they all are working, and they're all producing revenue and creating value. It's just that they're all modified versions of tasks that I do. They're not other human beings.
I just think when it's not going to be a number of agents, because it has to be a quantifiable output that gets calculated, meaning like what classifies a day's worth of work. And, in some jobs that's really easy. In manual labor jobs, that's really easy. In software jobs, it's really difficult of, being able to demonstrate the output value is more important than the time it took to build it. I don't know. I'm going to have to decouple some of this, but I do think that if you get to the point where I can own these agents, these bots that do things, and then I can outsource them, or somebody can come along who's looking for an agent that does exactly what I do, that they're going to be able to have fractional micro payments, real time paying for that service. And I think there's going to be a new and updated iteration of the gig economy. If the pandemic led everyone to understanding the gig economy, like Uber really drove it into the mainstream. I think the pandemic really helped, but and maybe if people will understand that they can go and freelance and be their own small business owner. And one last final point, Sam Altman said at some point he would not be surprised that the next billionaire founder or the next founder of a billionaire unicorn would be a sole founder, a single person who creates enough value to raise money at $1 billion.
Who might actually be able to be called a unicorn in the real true sense of the word, because a unicorn is not supposed to be a whole bunch of people working offshore, creating a bunch of value to equal $1 billion. A true unicorn is one individual who you accidentally find in the forest when you're out looking for, healing potions. I mean, the thing too about this agency that I also find really interesting is that it is such a common term, and it's something that is malleable as a term and can mean so many things to so many people. That's something I think is actually quite important for everyone to understand and to in their own way what it is and how to take advantage of it. So let's be real, right? This sort of behavior at a very basic level existed 2 decades ago at a minimum. We had a production team. The production team was cutting up Photoshop files to create graphical elements to put onto the internet. The front end engineers or the production team would use macros. Everyone remembers the term macro, right? What's the macro? Well, I drag a visual file, a photo, into a folder that has a macro running on it. And what does it do? It goes and runs a series of steps. It clicks the link, it uploads the thing, it rasterizes it, it uses our filter, puts the watermark in the corner, creates a transparent overlay, and then drops it into the folder that then gets referenced by the database to say, go publish to the front page. And that was this really hard thing that someone had to click and click and click. You talk about carpal tunnel. This was the era of carpal tunnel. People just sitting in cube farms, just click, 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 click. Oh, the macro saved all the tendons in my wrist. Now, I don't have left-handed mice and right-handed mice and trackballs and keyboards that break in the middle and stand up like this way and whatever. This little folder does it for me. So, but a macro, it's not accessible unless you sit in a cube and click things all day long. You're like, what do I care about a macro? So now the agent is a simple concept. It's very simple. Like, we get it, right? Well, what does it do? Well, this agent is you. It's a reflection of you. What part of me? What part do you want it to be?
Well,
and then I'll deploy my agent. And we tell our kids every day, you need to speak up in school so you can have agency. You have to, hey, what are you guys doing later? Oh, I got to go down to the agency and talk to a few people about my brand. Okay. Well, there's a few agents there. When I go and talk to the people in New York who picked up all the shell cases at the crime scene, I don't know, where is Agent Badowski? Is he here? He has to clear this before anyone leaves. Could someone call the agent? It's a very simple, normal part of speech that everyone will, I think, very easily adopt. And again, it may mean different things to different people, but that's how you sell in the mainstream. How you sell it in.
Who better to be in charge of the agents than the agencies?
Yeah, that's right.
I am going to leave it at that. We are going to have to get one more in before Christmas time so we can make some 2025 predictions. I can't wait to see what the next 10 days is going to look like. And if you don't have any Bitcoin in your wallet, not financial advice, but you should get some.
You should definitely get some. I'm not going to say anything about anything else except that sometimes when you're looking in your Finder on your computer, it's called a Finder for a reason. Everyone's there searching for something. I hope for everyone this holiday season that when you open your Finder, that you do find some sense of peace, some sense of happiness along with your soul. And I don't mean Solana in the crypto sense. I mean, we talk about all these things that are kind of cold and kind of technological and kind of robotic, but underneath it all are real living, breathing humans that are creating this AI. So as you look for things this Christmas, I hope that you find what makes you happy. Look forward to talking to you again in a week.
We'll do it again.
That's all the time we have for this episode of Off the Record on the Rocks. Join us next week for more news and all things Web3. Check, please.